Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Kopidana Balaba Grivadari Jaya Grivadari Kopidana Balaba Grivadari Jaya Grivadari Yasodanandana Brajadana Ranjana Jaya Brajadana Ranjana Yasodanandana Brajadana Ranjana Jaya Brajadana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Varachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Yamuna Tira Varachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Kopidana Balaba Grivadari Jaya Grivadari Yasodanandana Brajadana Ranjana Jaya Pradadana Ranjana Yasodanandana Pradadana Ranjana Jaya Pradadana Ranjana Yamunatiravachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Yamunatiravachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parvadakacharya Asatara Sadushi Shiman His Divine Grace Shalasi Bhaktivedanta Swami Raj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Gaur Premanande Haribo Slava Zarani Bhaktam Slava Shri Guru Shri Grangi Om Agyanantimanandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chaksur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Pandeham Shri Guru Shri Uta Parakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sabadutam Hridana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Badan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vasakans Vitams Cha Hey Krishna Karna Sindhu Dinabando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchena Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prishubhanu Siddhadevi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakapa Turvyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Patidanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Pranitananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 4, Ambarish Maharaj offended by Durvasa Muni, text number 29. Ariradhaishu Krishnam Mahishatulya Shilaya Yukta Samvatsaram Viro Dadara Dwadasi Vratam Aruradaishu Krishnam Mahishatulya Shilaya Yukta Samvatsaram Viro Dadara Dwadasi Vratam Ladies. Ariradhaishu, aspiring to worship Krishnam, the Supreme Lord, Krishna. Mahishya, with his queen, Tulya Shilaya, who was equally as qualified as Maharaj Ambrisha. Yukta, together, Samvatsaram, for 1 year. Vira, the king. Didara, accepted. Dwadasi Vratam, the vow for observing Ekadasi and Dwadasi. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. To worship Lord Krishna, Maharaj Ambarish, along with his queen, who is equally qualified, observed the vow of Ekadasi and Dwadasi for 1 year. Purport. To observe Ekadasi Vrat and Dwadasi Vrata means to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Those interested in advancing in Krishna consciousness must observe Ekadasi Vrata regularly. Maharaj Ambarish, his queen, was equally as qualified as the king. Therefore, it is possible for Maharaj Ambrisha to engage his life in household affairs. In this regard, the word Tulya Shilaya is very significant. Unless the wife is equally as qualified as her husband, household affairs are very difficult to continue. Chanaka Pandit advises that a person in such a situation should immediately give up household life and become a vanaprastha or a sannyasi. Mata yasya grihe nashti Parya chapriya vadini aranya tena gantavyam yataranyam tatagriham. Person who has no mother at home and his wife is not agreeable with him should immediately go away to the forest. Because the human life is meant for spiritual advancement only. One's wife must be helpful in this endeavor. Otherwise, there is no need of household or life. So the text again. To worship Lord Krishna, Arjambrish, along with his queen, who is equally qualified, observe the vow of Ekadasi and Dwadasi for 1 year. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti-vedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Bacharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paskajade Sunarane. In the Bhagavad-gita, Krishna says, Sarva dharma parityajya mame kam sharanam vraja ahang tvang sarvapapebhyo mokshishyami ma suchaha. That there are so many things to do in the material world. And some of them have to do with self-realization. Some of them are more complicated than the others. Just like, for instance, in Bhagavad-gita, Krishna explains acting dutifully, cultivating knowledge, performing the mystic yoga system of Ashtanga yoga, renunciation, so many different things. And then Krishna says, give them up and surrender to me. All these different processes involve surrender. One has to hear, you're supposed to do like this, and then you think like this, and that's called surrender, if you do like that. Now those who are interested in material elevation or just getting out of the miseries of material existence, they also have to surrender. When you hear that you shouldn't eat too much, if one doesn't accept that, then one will have to suffer. Or eat too little. If one doesn't surrender to the red light and thinks, I'm free, I'm not going to follow these laws of Kamsa. When it's red, I'm going to run across the street. And hopefully I won't hit any car and damage it. So if one doesn't surrender to the red light, then one will get in difficulty. If one eats too much, one will get into difficulty. Now, generally speaking, most people, when they grow up, they know they're supposed to stop at the red light unless you're blind. And even then you shouldn't be crossing the street if you're blind. They have in the boxes, they have little sounds to make up for it. So you can hear that the light is red or the light is green. And if you don't listen to the sound, if you're deaf and blind, and you still cross the street anyhow, then you'll get killed, that's all. That's one way of learning. You'll get another body, and hopefully next time you obey the traffic signal. In any case, modern society, people have been taught to be rebellious to different degrees, unless you're completely insane, which many people are becoming. Then, generally speaking, there's some point of surrender. But the point of surrender has come that now they think that in the household life, neither the man nor the woman should surrender. Household life is just a convenient arrangement for sex life. And just like chewing gum, you can chew the gum for some time. Actually, they used to have chewing gum without sugar, and it wasn't very popular. It's a good way of getting rid of the fillings in your mouth without going to a dentist. But it's not there's no impetus to chew gum without sugar. So the impetus, they started to sell gum when someone discovered that if you put some sugar in the gum, more people will buy it, lo and behold. And so gum became very popular. They put flavor, spearmint, or whatever other flavors there are. But then after the flavor goes out, then you wind up in the same place you started. There's no taste. You're just working your jaw. And so most people at that time, either they spit it out or they put it underneath their bed they attach to their bed, thinking that maybe in the future it'll get some more flavor. But there's some degree of surrender necessary. But when the sugar is out, then you spit it out. So, but human form of life is meant for also surrender. And there's a whole system of, for instance, things like household life, which Prabhupada said has become somewhat of an imagination, actual real household life in modern society, because people think, when the sugar's out, I spit him or her out. There's no sense. And if the kids are around, then, you're 5 years old, you're old enough to get out there and make your own, get out there and see what you can do yourself. Don't bother me, kid. So the result of that is there is no clear, stable society. There's no stable society in modern society because people don't know what anything is meant for. They think everything is meant for sense gratification, and that's why they work, that's why they have relationships. And as soon as the sense gratification is not there, then immediately the relationship is ended, the work is ended, everything is ended, and therefore no one has any determination, no one has any, no one is reliable, because you never know when their minds are going to tell them that's the end. But in the Vedic culture, the man is supposed to surrender to the guru, who's supposed to surrender to the Vedas. There's no question of having a guru if he doesn't know the Vedas, if he doesn't follow the Vedas, if he doesn't know what to do at every moment according to Krishna, through his, at least through Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, then how can he actually properly guide? If he can't guide himself, how can he guide anyone else? At the same time, ladies, at least in the Vedic culture, where men actually had some intelligence, scriptural intelligence, then the result is that they're supposed to hear from the man who's supposed to explain things in such a way as that the lady can understand it and therefore put into practice the injunctions of the scripture, which Prabhupada said is not, usually requires a whole lot of intelligence. For instance, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that Amadidvam adamvidvam hingsa shanti arjavam acharya pasanam socham styriam atma vinigraha indriyarte shu vairagyam anahankara evacha janma mriti jara vyadi dukkha dosha nudarshanam. And now this is the verse that I was looking for. Asaktas abhivishvatsya ishta asaktan vishvanga putra dari grihadishu. Detachment for wife, children, home, and the rest. So this detachment doesn't mean that one, as Prabhupada explains in the purport, that one has no affection for the wife, children, home, and the rest, but it's restricted to a certain extent in the sense that the material side of it is restricted and the spiritual side of it becomes unlimited. It's not that only in the material world there's something called affection, but actually affection exists in its real form in the spiritual world, in the form of prema. And in the material world, it's restricted and pervertedly reflected. But when one is engaged in devotional service, then, and the more one becomes purified, then the more the natural, spontaneous, unlimited affection develops, not only for the wife, children, home, and the rest, but for every living entity. If one develops affection for Krishna and all living entities in relation to Krishna, then there's no limit to it. And that's what's being taught. That's what the husband is supposed to teach the wife, just like Devahuti was taught by at least her son, Kapila Dev, and Karima Muni also was her instructor. He didn't instruct her how to make money, how to dress nicely. There was no need for that in the forest. Of course, Karima Muni gave his wife the best residence, the best dress, the best of everything. But ultimately, her son taught her how to become detached from all those things. That's what she eventually wanted. She got everything she wanted, and then she saw that there must be something more. So she wanted to get detached from all this and absorption in Krishna consciousness. And that's what her son taught her, and that's what Karma Muni gave her the first example, and then gave her an opportunity to see what materialistic life could be like at the maximum. But then when she didn't want that, when she wasn't satisfied with it, then her son gave her full transcendental realization. So that's the goal of household life, to give self-realization. And if one thinks, well, self-realization, that's all right for a brahmachari life. Hopefully that's all right for the brahmachari. When I get sufficiently qualified in self-realization, then I can enter into the life of sense gratification. I've had enough of this self-realization. Now's the time to enjoy again. Because now I've gotten the technique. I've realized. So that's Maya, in case you didn't know. That's what the definition of Maya is. On the other hand, in household life, there is sense gratification on some level, but it's also coupled with Krishna consciousness. So that one is able to enjoy the senses to the best one can, but at the same time one can experience the higher taste of Krishna consciousness. And if one can't understand that, then one should at least hopefully learn from experience. Because everyone is looking for love, affection, appreciation, security. You can't feel secure if someone doesn't love you. If someone dislikes you, they're not going to help make you very secure. As a matter of fact, that's a good cause of insecurity. I'm living with a snake who wants to bite me. How can you feel secure? If you live with a puppy dog who loves you, you feel more secure. Till you find out he's licking your face, but maybe he wants to eat you. Anyhow, at least you have the illusion that you're secure. So similarly, the man is supposed to find out what the Vedas say, and he's supposed to realize it by practice, and part of that practice is relationship with his wife. If he thinks his wife is a machine for sex life, then obviously it's not within the Vedas. There's no verse that says that. That if the wife is a object of service, the family is an object of service, so that they can get the necessities of life, which include children, proper food, proper shelter, what's actually necessary. And then at the same time, everything is utilized in Krishna's service. The children are produced in Krishna's service, they're raised in Krishna's service, the house is utilized in Krishna's service, the food is offered to Krishna, the deities are worshipped. And therefore Prabhupada said that household life means to sit down morning and evening with the wife and children and chant Hare Krishna together. And at the same time offer the food to the deities, worship the deities, hear Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita. That's household life. Otherwise, if one is not engaged in that, then it's cat and dog life. Maybe it's very nicely decorated cat and dog life. Maybe even your cat and dog has, nowadays they dress the cat and dog. The dog, the French poodle, looks like, some kind of model. A contester for Miss Poodle America or something. And they even put on clothes on the dogs nowadays. Winter jacket, bikini on the poodle, something. So people become so bewildered, they don't know what the purpose of household life is. They want love, they want security, they want affection, but they're not taught how to actually achieve it. So that's Pariksha Maharaj here. Ambarish Maharaj is setting the example. But that requires that before you get married, you have to make sure that your wife is actually interested in such things. I remember I was married for, I think, around a week or two. I can't tell you what my wife's name was because I never found out. It didn't go down in any romantic history or anything. In any case, I learned very quickly that my wife wasn't as serious as I hoped she'd be, because every time I'd read the Bhagavad Gita to her, she'd fall asleep. So I thought, oh, this is not a very good student. She was interested in other things. In any case, unless the wife has some interest in, if the man has interest in spiritual advancement, then he should make sure the wife has an interest in spiritual advancement too. Otherwise, it's not going to be compatible. They may have so many different interests in common. They like the same rock music. They went to the same bar when they were younger. They like to play tennis and ski. They may have so many interests in common. But if one has a spiritual interest and the other has no interest in spiritual life, it's going to be incompatible. One wants to make $1 million every year, and the other one wants to live in a hut and chant Hare Krishna. There's going to be problems in the relationship. So better off before you get married to find out. Not that I love you, you're beautiful, I just can't live without you. And then after a couple of months, I can't live with you. Therefore, and the most basic thing is what your interest in spiritual life is. Because spiritual life is, in order to chant Hare Krishna, in order to read Srimad Bhagavatam, in order to worship the deities, it takes time. And in the present society, when you have to work hard, that also takes time. And if you have to raise children, that's even more time. And if you have older parents you have to take care of, it's more time. So if you're not interested in spiritual life, then you'll take the time away from everything else. Oh, you'll just use the time for spiritual life for all the other obligations, and spiritual life will disappear once you get married. And then you'll get frustrated because there's no spiritual life, there's no real ultimate happiness, and therefore you think, well, let me find another relationship, and I can chew on that gum for a while. So spiritual life, Krishna consciousness is not an alternative, it's not one of the many options, and it's not, can be done whimsically. The time has to be allotted for it in order to get the intelligence so that other parts of one's life can be spiritualized too. Unless one can hear and chant sufficiently, become convinced, at least theoretically, that I should try to apply this teaching in my life, then one will simply live on the material platform and waste one's human form of life. So I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions or comments? Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maybe it's a delicate question, but how to avoid this phenomenon of illicit sex in Grihastha couples?
I have no idea. Well, some suggestions. It depends how much determined you are, but if one is actually chanting one's rounds offenselessly and actually getting a taste for the holy name, then one can see that if one engages in sex life improperly, then one will lose one's taste immediately for spiritual life. It's very hard to light a fire and at the same time pour water on it. But if one doesn't have sufficient taste for chanting, for the process of devotional service, then one there's nothing to miss. There's nothing to compare. It's like a vulture, he flies very high, 5 miles in the air, very small eyes, but he can see a dead body on the ground. But that's why he's going so high. He's looking for a dead body. So one has to be serious about sadhana. And if one is serious enough, before one gets married, one should have some taste for devotional service and Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, it's very difficult to learn it in household life. Therefore, the first years are meant for brahmachari life. And brahmachari life is meant to be a brahmachari, not a brahmastra. That I'm a brahmachari on the outside and I'm a householder inside. That's probably, Krishna says, that's called a pretender. One should actually make a determination to fix the mind upon Krishna so one can get a higher taste. And then household life is a further extension of, it's an ashram of developing spiritual life. Not an excuse to leave spiritual life for 25 years and hope at the end of the life one will chant Hare Krishna. So I said the vulture goes very high, but it's looking for a dead body. So we should know what we're looking for in brahmachari life, grihastha life. Otherwise, one can go very high. As I mentioned before, when I was distributing books in Charlotte Airport, there was a big competition in the world to become number one, or at least in the top 20. It's about as much as I made it into the top 20 in the world at that time. But my partner was in the top 5. But he sold all his books. He would only stop the most well-dressed, attractive lady who came by. Otherwise, he had no interest. And if you took a movie of his distributing the books, you would think it was Romeo meeting Juliet. Or Tarzan meeting Jane, depending who we met. And he would sell them a book after some time, get their number and kiss them goodbye. So that went on for some months, and then finally he met the lady he was looking for, and that was the end of his book distribution. So he had a great opportunity to meet so many attractive ladies in the airport, and book distribution was the perfect excuse to stop them and get to know them, to find out what the one he was looking for. So that's not a very good, it's not the, wasn't the purpose of book distribution. Book distribution is an opportunity to actually save the conditioned souls, of which we're the primary soul we should save, ourselves. And if we don't do that, then the whole thing's a failure. So household life is an opportunity to serve the wife and children, to serve the community, to even serve the pets or whatever animals you have if you have a farm. It's an opportunity for service, not an opportunity for exploitation. That's just less than cat and dog life. Any questions? Yes.
Avadhuta Rai, Prabhu is asking, does Krishna love us unconditionally? If so, then why does he say, as they surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly?
Yes, Krishna gives everyone what they want. If they don't want to surrender to him, Krishna gives them accordingly. It's like if you go to a multimillionaire, a billionaire, and you ask for 50 cents, if you ask for €2, and he gives you €2, he gave him what you asked for. How can you blame him? That's what you asked for. So if you go to Krishna and you ask for something insignificant and he gives it to you, how can you blame Krishna? He's advertising, give up everything and surrender to me and I'll give you myself. You say, oh, I don't want that. Give me something else. Then what can Krishna do? He can't force you to take himself. Anything else?
There's one more. I heard in one lecture about 9 processes of bhakti by Prahlad, that only when one is completely surrendered, one's activities become pure devotional service and not otherwise. What do you think?
Well, I can't disagree with Prahlad Maharaj. still, if one focuses one's mind upon any of these processes, then the result will be that one will actually be able to experience transcendental ecstasy, which is pretty close to pure devotional service. I mean, and then when we come to the pure platform of bhava, constant bhava, then we can actually enter into unalloyed devotional service completely. That's what Akrura said in his prayers to Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, in Srimad Bhagavatam, when he was praying to Krishna after Krishna, he was in Mathura, and Akrura was offering Krishna prayers. He said, when one comes to the stage of liberation from all material existence, and at that stage, then Krishna can accept one into pure devotional service. Because that's what we want. We don't want anything else, and then we can, pure devotional service, Krishna prema can be bestowed upon us. But before that, we can come to other stages where we experience more higher and higher states of awareness, understanding, and pure bliss, love. So that will attract us to pure devotional service, unalloyed pure devotional service, Uttama Bhakti. So it's not all or nothing. It's a gradual process of getting a higher and higher understanding and higher taste till we can get the highest understanding and the highest taste. Yes?
Hare Krishna, I have a more simple question. Is there, I heard you need to be a grihasta to take care of the cows, to make a farm. Is
Really?
it a rule, or can also brahmacharis take care of cows and just,
You have to ask the cows. I don't think they have any objection. They only like people to milk them who have white on.
But from the point of view that brahmacharis should do sankirtan and should do harinam and should not
Well, that's
necessarily
not a
take care
bad idea. But if there's some brahmachari on a farm, I don't think he's disqualified just because he's a brahmachari. But generally farms are run by grihastas. But brahmacharis can also be there. They can also do service there. Anything else? Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanande.